Ravenford Landing woke to river fog rising in slow swirls along the streets that sloped down toward the pier. Amelia Pierce's house smelled of pine resin and cinnamon, the oven working at its own pace. The table nearly set, and the living room boho and warm-looking like a winter collage, knitted wool blankets, jar candles, green branches on a wooden tray. Amelia, 45, curvy, blonde, wore a flowing cream dress under a honey-colored cardigan. Her loose, polished curls gave her a Marylena echo passed through a modern filter. As she placed thin slices of citrus orange into a pitcher, she spoke without looking back. "Elsa, we have guests today. I hope you behave, Your Majesty," the white Angora cat, blue eyes like ice that doesn't chill, answered with a purr and curled up on the back of the armchair. Amelia smiled cancer in the way she warmed everything and slipped a thermos over her forearm before setting it on the sideboard next to the mugs, strong coffee to survive her own stuffing. The porch light cast an amber oval when the doorbell buzzed. When she opened, the cold air brought the river and Michael Harding. 25, tall, athletic, casual chic, navy technical coat. A gray sweater that framed his shoulders, dark jeans, spotless boots. He carried a box of borrowed plates. "Last-minute tableware," he said, broad smile. Sagittarian energy that always seems to arrive a step ahead of everyone else. Elsa leaped to the floor with feline precision, brushed against Michael's ankle, and circled him twice ceremoniously. The purr was so clear Amelia didn't need to translate. "You've got the house vote," she said, stepping aside. "Leave that in the kitchen." Michael crossed the threshold naturally, careful not to hit the doorframe. As he passed Amelia, the scent of his coat mixed the house's citrus with clean outdoor air. She pointed to the central candle on the sideboard. "Help me with this." Their hands met over the lighter. A soft click, flame, a dancing shadow, breathing dropping half a tone. He held her gaze for a second, taking in Amelia's curvy body in a way that was not innocent, but he released her hand with a deference that warmed her shoulders more than the cardigan ever had. "Thanks for coming," Amelia said, shifting back to practical ground. "Half my serving dishes are heirlooms. They weigh like secrets." "Good. Secrets don't break if you carry them slowly," he replied, setting the box on the counter. Elsa climbed onto the sideboard and sniffed the edge of the box. Michael offered her the back of his hand, patient. The cat touched it with her nose and closed her eyes, blessing him. "Approved by the committee," Amelia joked. From the street came laughter and the smell of firewood Thanksgiving signals. Inside, time seemed to stretch just enough, a plate settling, a glass chiming, a flame trembling. Amelia took a long breath, aware of that tiny shift in her center of gravity, like when the river current changes without making a sound. She smiled with just the corner of her mouth. "Coffee?" she asked, lifting the thermos. "Always," he replied. And in that always there fit, without promises, the possibility of a shared rhythm. The flame flickered and the porch light blinked once. From under the stairs came a dull thud, followed by a cold draft smelling of river fog. Elsa stopped purring, raised her tail, and fixed her blue eyes on the cellar hatch now slightly ajar, as if someone or the wind had pushed it. Amelia and Michael exchanged a look. She pointed downward, trying to make a joke while swallowing the lump in her throat.
"It's nothing," she said. "Just the Christmas boxes."
"They're heavy and sometimes shift with the river current." "I'll check tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll help," he said immediately. The porch light steadied again. Elsa kept her gaze locked on the opening, a white sentry. And like that, with the house holding its breath, the story went down to the cellar. The porch light was still steady when the doorbell rang for the second time. Leo crossed the threshold with cheeks flushed from the cold, and behind him came Maya, his wife, carrying a covered dish. "We made it in time for the parade," he joked, kissing Amelia on the cheek. The house turned into a human chain, from the kitchen to the dining room, from Amelia's hands to Michael's, and from them to Leo and Maya. Elsa, walking with the poise of a white queen, supervised from the countertop. "Careful with the gravy," Amelia warned, holding the sauce boat. "And leave room for the turkey." Michael, tall and athletic, balanced two trays with a calm that diffused nerves. They understood each other without speaking. He opened, she placed. Elsa approved with a slow blink. Michael's parents arrived next, a mixed couple. She, African-American with a burgundy scarf and lively eyes. He, Caucasian, tall, wearing a tweed jacket. They brought a dish of creamy mac and cheese and a sweet potato casserole with toasted marshmallows. There were natural hugs. Amelia thanked them for the help, and Michael, proud but discreet, integrated them into the chain. He served, his mother adjusted the angle of a dish so it wouldn't drip, and his father commented that the house smelled like childhood. Elsa sniffed their coats and, satisfied, returned to her post as feline inspector. The warmth between families made the dining room feel wider. Then came Amelia's parents, her younger sister with her husband, and her 7-year-old twin nieces, all carrying cornbread and an extra pie. There were hugs, comments about the cinnamon scent and the shine of the tablecloth. Curious yet respectful glances toward Michael, who responded with courtesy and helpful hands. Not long after, Charlie appeared, Amelia's ex and Leo's father, dark coat, careful smile, empty-handed. They had been divorced for a year. His infidelity had been the final drip in a glass already cracked. Even so, they were here today for Leo, so no one had to choose. Charlie greeted politely, and Amelia replied with a clear gesture, welcome Charles and peace at the table. The last to arrive were Michael's older sister and her husband, married less than a year. They brought 2 bottles of good wine, a spiced red and a mineral white, and a celebratory hug that still smelled faintly of honeymoon. There were congratulations, brief laughter, and the clink of glass against wood. Michael introduced them naturally, and Amelia placed them by the sideboard where the wine could breathe. Dinner unfolded like an orderly tide. Golden turkey, sage stuffing, silky mashed potatoes, green beans with crisp topping, glazed carrots, rolls, 2 styles of cranberry sauce. Laughter, a small toast. To the family we are and the one we choose, Amelia said. Michael held her gaze for a heartbeat without overstepping. Elsa tried to climb onto a chair, causing a chorus of ooh and laughter that broke any lingering stiffness. Daniel raised his glass. To your home, Amelia. You've always made everything feel like one. The comment landed gently, without hidden edges. The evening continued with pie served in shifts, stories from the pier, and plans for the tree-lighting ceremony. One by one, the chairs emptied. Leo and Maya left, promising to come back early to help clean. The rest followed in a stream of hugs and scarves. Charlie, last of all, thanked her with a nod and walked out. Silence returned like a blanket. In the kitchen, Amelia and Michael stacked plates by the sink. Steam from the water fogged the window. Elsa curled up on the stool. Thanks for staying, Amelia said, barely a thread of voice. I wanted to, he replied, very close. They looked at each other. Consent in their eyes, in the slow tilt of their heads, in the way Amelia brushed her fingertips over Michael's knuckles before sliding her hand up the gray sweater. The kiss came like that. First a soft edge, warm breath. Then the right amount for sure. Hands at her boho waist, wool fabric yielding under fingers. Amelia's back met the counter with a gentle touch. He held back his strength, and that drew her closer. The air smelled of citrus and oven heat. The second kiss went deeper, lips recognizing, breaths blending, pulse setting the pace. Caresses moved over clothing, a palm on the curve of her hip, fingers tracing the cardigan's border, a thumb pausing at the line of her jawbone. Amelia answered with a hand at Michael's nape, tugging just slightly, an invitation stated with full clarity. Here, she murmured. Like this. The world shrank to fabric and skin beneath fabric, to the deep sound of 2 breaths finding rhythm. Elsa lifted her head, curious, then went back to sleep. Then a turn of the handle. The porch door opened slowly. In the frame, Charlie. Sorry. I forgot my scarf. Silence weighed for a second. Amelia and Michael froze, facing each other, still close, lips damp, hands still on fabric, chests rising and falling. Charlie stared, motionless, with a mix of surprise and something unspoken. The moment held still like an untitled photograph. Amelia swallowed and lowered her hands slowly. The flush remained on her skin. Her voice, however, came out cold and clear. This isn't right, Michael. It's my fault. I loosened up with the wine and I don't always control my impulses when you're near. You're very attractive. But what happened isn't right. Michael drew a deep breath, softened his shoulders.
He didn't step closer.
On the contrary, he moved half a step back, creating space where warmth had been. I hear you, thank you for saying it. I don't want you to feel bad or pressured. I'll leave to give you time and space. I'm sorry, Amelia said sincerely, her voice a thread. You don't have to apologize for setting boundaries. Good night, Amelia. The porch door closed with a soft click. Elsa jumped onto the counter and rubbed her forehead against Amelia's wrist, as if reminding her there was still a home here. Minutes later, her phone vibrated. A message from Michael. Despite what happened, I'll stop by tomorrow to check the basement so I can be sure. If you prefer I don't come in, I understand. I can pick up the key from the doormat and let you know when I'm done. Rest. Amelia pictured the slightly ajar cellar hatch in her mind. The porch light stayed steady. She replied with something brief and honest, thank you, and turned off her bedside lamp. At dawn, Michael would ring the doorbell to start with the basement. Frost bit at the porch steps. At 8, the porch light was still on when Michael knocked with his knuckles. He carried a tool backpack, a knit beanie, and that air of someone who always seems ready to move. Amelia cream wool sweater and improvised ponytail opened, the door with a calmness still slightly cracked from the night before. Good morning, he said, staying at the distance she set. I'm here for the basement. Come in. Thanks for coming. Elsa appeared like a living snowflake, sniffed the backpack, and settled on the stairs, alert. Michael turned on his flashlight. Amelia held a mug of the tea she'd prepared at dawn. The hatch gave way with a sigh and a blast of cold air. They descended the narrow ladder, hands on the rungs, dust floating in the air, the smell of river fog mixed with pine resin from old boxes. Michael tried the light switch. A hum, and half a bulb. No one down here, he joked softly, trying to ease the air. But there's a leak, he pointed to a dark streak on the wall. I figured, Amelia replied. He moved the flashlight, measured the damp with his palm, then touched the ladder. You go up first, he said. I'll hand things up to you. Michael's palm held Amelia's forearm with a soft, steady firmness. Above, Elsa meowed one impatient syllable. Back in the kitchen, Michael explained. Nothing serious. Condensation and an old seal. I'll replace the rubber and air it out. If it's okay with you, I'll leave a temporary dehumidifier. That sounds perfect, she said. Thank you so much. And about last night, he added, setting the backpack down without stepping closer. I'm not going to pressure you. I want you to feel safe with me, even if that means keeping some distance. Michael looked at the edge of the table, choosing his words. There's something I didn't say. As you know, I moved back to town after university because of my mom. She was sick. Breast cancer. She's fine now, he smiled faintly, but I needed to be here. And since then, I've noticed you. I never expected anything you were married, and I assumed the age difference would keep me miles away. He paused, still not moving closer. When I started working at my parents' café and bakery focusing on improving the business and getting tangled up in social media, marketing, online sales, I had a relationship with a coworker. It lasted a few months. I kept comparing her to you, and she always lost. It didn't seem fair to continue. I knew my heart was with you, even if it wasn't mutual. And then the unexpected happened. You divorced Charlie, and for the first time I had hope. To be honest, every girlfriend I had, in high school and in college, I chose comparing them to you. Amelia listened with soft incredulity and an empathy that wasn't pity. She knew that sting of feeling not enough beside someone you adore. She'd lived it too long with Charlie, since high school, under that polished prom king aura that always looked down on her. Still, she held Michael's gaze steadily. Thank you for telling me, she said quietly. I didn't imagine that. You don't have to answer right now, he cut in gently. I just wanted you to know where I'm coming from. They worked in silence for a while, he adjusting the seal, she carrying boxes up to the living room. Elsa wandered back and forth, dragging a ribbon like a banner. When Michael finished, he washed his hands and checked the time. I'll see you this evening at the pier for the lighting, if you're going, he said. I'll go, she replied, and that verb sounded like a key turning without a sound. And I promise we'll talk about us. I need to think about what you told me. I don't think it's right to leave things like this between us. The whole town gathered as evening fell. The river fog hung low like a backdrop, and the big tree on the pier waited wrapped in garlands. Amelia arrived with Leo and Maya. Charlie approached to greet them politely. Michael stood a little farther away with his parents and his sister, holding cups of hot chocolate. Their eyes met, respect, an invisible line. The countdown filled the boardwalk with voices. A cold wind made Amelia pull her coat tighter. Michael, without crossing boundaries, raised his thermos in a small gesture from afar. She smiled and shook her head as if saying, "I'm fine." The lights came on amidst applause. A boy from the nautical club snapped more photos for the bulletin. The town's murmur flowed like a second river. "Beautiful," Leo said honestly. "Ravenford knows how to feel like home." "Yes," Amelia answered warmly. During the carol, Michael came close enough that only the two of them would hear. "Tomorrow I can help you carry up the rest of the boxes. Or I step back completely. Whatever you choose, Amelia." A group of children ran past and pushed them half a step apart. They ended up by the railing, both looking at the lights reflected on the water. "Thank you for respecting me," Amelia added. "Thank you for telling me how," he replied. "I need you to hear something," she said, the cold biting at her knuckles. "I've spent a long time trying to lie to myself. I kept repeating that you were a kid and that I was being ridiculous because you're my son's best friend. But I started noticing you a long time ago, when things with Charlie were falling apart, especially because of his infidelities. I felt fat, old, and not enough. I thought I'd never attract anyone again, least of all someone like you." Michael stayed silent, letting her speak. "After the divorce, I took care of myself again. My millennial co-workers at the library and a couple of body-positive YouTubers helped me love myself again. I promised I'd go out, date, take it slow. And since that moment in the kitchen and after what you told me, I've thought, maybe trying with you isn't a bad thing. No commitments at first. See how it goes." She swallowed. "What scares me is not being enough intimately. You're young and handsome. I imagine you've lived incredible things. With Charlie, that part never worked well, and I don't want to disappoint you." Michael stepped half a pace closer without crowding her. "Thank you for saying that out loud. I'm not looking for a record or a rule book, Amelia. We can learn together. If there's something you don't like, we stop. If you like it, you tell me. At your pace. What if we try?" she asked, soft but brave. "Then let's keep it simple," he proposed. "You know I live above my parents' café. If you want, come now. We'll see if we're compatible. I promise it doesn't commit us to anything. If you don't like it, I'll take you home and that's that. If you do, we go forward however you decide. And if you'd rather not, just say so." The wind made the garlands tremble. The water returned a wavering reflection. Michael extended his hand open, unrushed. "Will you come?" he asked gently. Amelia looked at his hand, then at the lights shimmering on the water. The yes began forming on her lips. The cafe's darkened sign left a deeper rectangle on the street. The side staircase led up to a door with frosted glass. Michael opened it and switched on a warm light. The apartment was a simple loft, exposed brick walls, honey-colored wooden floors, a shelf lined with books and old cameras, a climbing plant in the window, a table with mugs and a grinder. Minimal garlands, amber fairy lights hung from the ceiling like a soft echo of the pier. In the back, a small, tidy kitchen. To the left, a gray wool sofa with soft blankets, and beyond it, a low bed with a wooden headboard. It smelled of roasted coffee and a hint of lemon from recent cleaning. "Welcome," Michael said, closing the door without locking it. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Amelia replied, with an honesty that had become second nature. "I want to be here. Then I'll make coffee and we talk. Or we don't talk and just listen to each other," he smiled. He ground the beans and poured the water. Steam rose with a whisper. Amelia walked through the space with curious eyes. She touched the spine of a book, the texture of the sofa, the rim of a mug. She slipped out of her coat and set it on a chair, remaining in her dress. She clipped her hair up. A couple of stubborn curls brushed her nape. "Tell me if anything doesn't feel right," Michael said, handing her a mug. "Your pace." Amelia nodded. She drank a sip. The warmth loosened her shoulders. She looked at him tall, athletic beneath the dark sweater, attentive eyes. Her heart repeated that choosing this was okay. They sat on the sofa. A cushioned silence stretched between them, full of breath and the muffled hum of the street outside. Michael set down his mug and looked at her, seeking permission. Amelia tilted her head a centimeter, and he brought his hand slowly to the zipper of her dress. May I? Yes, she answered clearly. Spicy seguro. Michael's fingers slid along the cotton until they found the skin of her forearm. His thumb traced small, steady, patient circles. She responded by placing her palm on his chest, measuring pressure like someone learning a new language. The first kiss was edge and breath, lips touching, pulling back to listen. The second dropped half a tone, a deeper note, a pause that asked for entry and received it. Like this? He whispered. A little more, she said. Raven guided him through the fabric with sweet precision. Their hands kept finding new paths, the line of the shoulder, the curve of the hip, the place on her back where fabric softened. Amelia set the speed and direction with a naturalness that surprised her. Michael followed every cue, pressure when she wanted it, gentleness when she asked for it. The air filled with a low music, aligned breaths, soft whispers, the tiny laugh that appears when two bodies understand each other. If anything feels wrong, I stop, he murmured against her mouth. I'll tell you, she assured him, brushing his jaw with the back of her fingers. The kiss grew warm and deep, unhurried. Michael took her by the waist and pulled her just enough. Amelia settled onto his thigh, feeling the wool texture through the dress. He stroked the nape of her neck with his fingertips, and she answered with a subtle pull on his sweater, guiding him. The world shrank to hands, fabric, breath, and that rhythm that sometimes finds its own meter. Show me where, he whispered. Amelia did. She took his hand and guided it over her clothes to the places asking to be named. He understood, repeated the gesture, added only a shade more when she sought it. Between kiss and kiss, Michael did small check-ins. Okay, keep going. More? Less? And Amelia responded, sometimes with a clear yes, sometimes with a sigh that worked like a key. The room shifted temperature. The forgotten mug steam cooled behind them. They recalibrated the rhythm together, sitting to standing, standing back to the sofa, fabric sliding, buttons giving way. All still above the clothes, but with the intimacy of a dance behind a closed door. Michael, careful, was the first to pause when he sensed the slightest hesitation. Amelia, steady, raised the volume again with one clear gesture. Trust did the rest. You're so beautiful, he said without theatrics. The compliment didn't land like charity, but like truth, something aligned. The kisses deepened in a new language, lips that thanked, hands that learned, breaths that counted. The scene dimmed into shadows, a close-up of interlaced fingers. Fabric on the floor, the curve of a smile, the soft hum of the radiator, the brick walls holding warmth. The rest unfolded as expected. Hands, pressure, rhythm, low voices, a pause for water, a laugh. Another, then the satisfied stillness of two people who found harmony. Are you okay? Michael asked afterward, voice low. Yes, Amelia answered, and the yes sounded whole. They stayed lying there for a while, breathing. Michael reached for a blanket and covered Amelia carefully. She, clutching the wool edge, looked at the ceiling with bright eyes and let gratitude warm her chest. Amelia thought not as a mantra, but as a certainty that it had been the best experience of her life. She had only ever been with Charlie, and now she understood that intimacy could be something else. Better, attentive, hers. Michael had taken her to paradise more than once that night. Talented, yes, but also kind, attentive, generous. She allowed herself a small laugh, disbelieving and happy. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. It was even better than I dreamed, he replied. Outside, the cafe's sign still slept. Inside, the amber light held the good silence. She was starting to feel things for this man, and she would have to decide soon. She didn't want this to become a game or end up hurting either of them. She talked to Michael in the morning. For now, she let herself rest in the feeling of being completely satisfied. Days before, breaking the news to the family on Tuesday afternoon, Amelia brought tea and scones to her parents' house. Leo and Maya were already there. They told them about the relationship before the town could do it for them. That's what I like to hear, sweetheart, Amelia's father said joyfully, slapping the table with his palm. A young, handsome, wonderful man who makes you happy? Amelia's mother laughed, sharing a mischievous look with her husband like someone who just won a silent bet. There was a three-way hug. Nobody asked about ages. They asked about plans and feelings. That same day, Michael talked to his family. His mother confessed an old fear: gossip. His father raised an eyebrow and said, "When your mother and I started, people talked too. Choirs get tired if you dance with the truth." That night, Michael's mother sent a message: "The scare's wearing off." "You two looked solid," Michael replied with a photo of Elsa asleep on a red ribbon. She answered with a heart. Charlie, for his part, suddenly remembered he had a sister. Vermont became essential, apparently, and he announced, with theatrical solemnity, that he'd be spending Christmas Eve with my sister's family. The family chat went silent for 2 seconds, then carried on as if nothing had happened. Christmas Eve, Amelia's house smelled of pine and citrus again. The table this time for 14 had an ivory linen tablecloth, plates with gold trim, thin-stemmed glasses, and a low garland of eucalyptus and pomegranates. On each napkin, a cinnamon stick tied with red twine. The sideboard held the cold dishes: fennel orange salad, a smoked fish platter, salmon, trout, cheeses with grapes and walnuts, olives, and warm rolls under a cloth. On ceramic bakers rested the hot dishes: honey-spiced glazed ham, pork loin with cranberry sauce, silky mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, thyme-roasted carrots, baked sweet potatoes, and a creamy corn chowder waiting its turn. The dessert area had a Yule log, gingerbread cookies, pecan pie, and little meringues. Elsa, ever meticulous, sniffed the edges and approved with a slow blink. The porch light cast its warm oval of welcome. Leo and Maya arrived with a tray of roasted Brussels sprouts. Then Michael's parents with a casserole of mac and cheese that smelled like childhood. And Michael's older sister and her husband Jim brought 2 bottles of good wine. After that came Amelia's parents and her younger sister with her husband and the twins, carrying a shiny braided loaf and a Waldorf salad. There were laughs, coats being hung up, and Elsa conducting her inspection. Charlie was missing, of course. "The Vermont thing," they said, smiling, not in reproach but in relief. "How convenient to remember a sister the same week the whole town learned Amelia has a boyfriend," Michael's sister added, with needle-sharp irony. Laughter rang like sleigh bells. Before sitting down, Michael slipped an arm around Amelia's waist, a natural, visible gesture, and she rested her palm on his chest, brief but tender. There were affectionate glances both ways, unapologetically. Michael's father lifted his glass. "To Amelia and Michael, I've never seen my son this happy. And that's what matters." "Amen," his mother said, smiling, a smile no longer afraid of whispers. "I came worried about gossip." "I'm leaving certain this is a strong couple," Amelia's father added. "Delighted. I already said it on Tuesday if he makes you happy. The rest is background music. And good background music," his wife chimed in, giving him a playful look that embarrassed half the table. Serving became a cheerful human chain. Kitchen to dining room, hands passing dishes, Elsa weaving between legs without touching a thing, Amelia soft boho, Michael effortlessly tidy. Both at the center of the movement, synchronized. There were little toasts, photos, and the inevitable one for the town bulletin, which this time sounded more like a welcome than a judgment. Music filled the gaps. Between courses, Leo thanked everyone out loud for all this affection with zero prescript. Tabitha, Michael's mother, found Amelia in the kitchen and, without words, squeezed her hands. Amelia nodded, dry tears, wide smile. When the last dessert was served, the dining room settled into that beautiful chaos of big nights: half-full glasses, crumbs, late laughter. Michael came up behind Amelia and wrapped an arm around her waist again. She leaned fully into the embrace for a heartbeat. "You okay?" he whispered. "Better than okay," she said. At the door, Michael's parents repeated the toast Merry Christmas and Amelia's parents left a basket of cookies for tomorrow, Leo. And Maya promised to return early to help with the dishes. The house breathed into silence again. Elsa jumped onto the sideboard, let a red ribbon fall, and pushed it with her paw to Amelia's feet. Michael laughed under his breath. "I think the boss approves," he said. This time they didn't clean up the kitchen. They climbed the stairs hand in hand, in silence, toward the bedroom. The Christmas tree lights flickered. Outside, the river kept its course. Inside, the dining room table was set for something new, a Christmas Eve tradition where truth and affection fit without apology. And in the bedroom, the magic resurfaced, carrying them both to seventh heaven.
And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe and go watch another one.